All right, we are here at the Peer Support with Dr. Eric Speck and Dr. Sean Bjorndal. How we doing? We're gonna hit this roll and get back with intentions by Dr. Eric Speck. Eric, good to see you, my man. It's been a couple weeks.
Yes, yeah, I've been busy. It's good to be back. So your last name's not Bjorndal. I always thought it was Bjorndal, but you said you didn't pronounce the J.
No, Bjorndal. That's funny. Todd Lee gets it wrong every single time too.
I'm just messing with you though. It is kind of weird in there, but it's cool, man. Yeah, glad to be back. I was traveling all last week, and then a couple weeks before that, I was traveling too, and things are finally starting to slow down and get back to normal life, which is nice because it's good to have a lot going on, but it's not good to have a lot going on for a long time. You need those breaks. You gotta come back to normal every once in a while.
I love it. No, yes, thanks. No, it's good to catch up. I'm excited about this one today because I have no idea where it's going. Intentions. My wife and I have this intentions exercise we have for every New Year's Eve, but I don't think that's the case, right? Instead of having New Year's resolutions, we have New Year's intentions, right? So we write those out and try to work on them over the year. So, yeah. What are we doing? What's about intentions? What are we talking about?
I don't really know. No, I'm totally just kidding. I think I totally know where we're going. I'm being silly. The thing about intentions is when it comes down to intentions don't matter if they're not followed up by actions. And there are so many instances where people will feel, okay about themselves or about somebody else because of the intentions. It's like I could feel better about myself because I intended to call my mom today or my grandmother because I haven't talked to them in a long time. I was intending to do it. I'm thinking about them. I care about them. I'm intending on doing it. So, I'm a good person, that sort of thing. But it's like, no. If you want to be a good person, I could probably use a better term to that, but I'm using that one right now. Then pick up the phone and call your mother, call your grandmother. That's what a good son would do. A good grandson would do. And, that's just one example, but there are all sorts of examples where we have intentions, but intentions don't define us. A lot of times we define ourselves by our intentions. It's our actions that define us. It's our actions that are important. So you have to be really careful with intentions. And, you can apply that to really anything and everything in life. If we're talking as being a pharmacist, you intend on providing the best possible care that you can for your patients. That's what you really want to do. That's your intent. But maybe you're so busy filling prescriptions, meeting all these extra metrics that you're required to meet. Therefore, you're not providing the level of care to your patients or that personalized care to your patients that you want. Although you intend to, that's the kind of person you are. It's like, well, no, that's the kind of person you're telling yourself you want to be, but the kind of person you are is the kind of person who's rushing through these patients, not doing consultations, not taking the time you need to answer their questions and provide the care for them that you should be providing. And, you could talk about all sorts of examples like this. And I was talking to you earlier, I mentioned, about what happened to you when you got in a little trouble with the board of pharmacy. You had zero intentions to do anything wrong, yet there was still something that happened that you got, I'll say, reprimanded for, but there was no intention there.
Yeah. Just full disclaimer, license is free and clear. No reprimands on my license. Right. Accusation withdrawn, citation thrown out. I just had to be sure. Like, but you're right.
So I guess with your work, with your position at work, something happened there. Yeah, it's nothing that affected your license or your ability to practice pharmacy whatsoever. But essentially, there was a consequences because of something that happened, even though you had no intention. And that's like a little bit different than the example I gave earlier. But it goes back to the fact that intentions are meaningless most of the time. That's how I like to put it. It's actions that are important. And I'll talk about an example for me. I had a crazy story that led to some legal trouble when I was working as a pharmacist. I ended up, I was prescribed Ambien, by a physician. I was taking it as prescribed. And I was working out of town, staying at a hotel. So I took my medicine. I intended to go to sleep, but in an amnestic state, under the influence of Ambien, I ended up leaving the hotel room and causing a ruckus and causing a bunch of damage. And I don't remember any of it.
Wow.
I always look back at that and I say, like, how did this lead to such a bad consequence? It's like, I didn't intend to do any of that. Like, I honestly just intended to go to sleep and wake up the next day and continue on with my life. Yet a bunch of stuff happened. There were actions that I performed while amnestic. And that's what really mattered. Nobody cares about if that was my intention or not. They care about what actually happened. And, for the longest time, I tried arguing with everybody, the board, criminal justice system, about the whole intention part of it. And we don't need to go too much into detail with that because the law looks at intent a lot different than the rest of us. But it's not about the intent. It's about what actually happened, and I still had the responsibility to make sure those things didn't happen, yet I wasn't being responsible enough to prevent that from happening. And it did. And then I'm held accountable for it. So it's just really interesting when you look at the intentions. And I think the value and the weight that we put on intentions as society. And it's something I think each of us should look at and reflect upon and examine in ourselves is, how much are we doing that personally?
It's a wild story, Eric.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, no, I've never heard that one. You never told me that one before. I thought I thought I knew a little backstory.
I'm sure I did, but there's so much to my story. You probably just can't remember all the pieces to it. That's just one of the pieces, but it was actually the final one that that led to a lot of things. It really opened my eyes to like, oh my gosh, like this is serious. I need to get help. It's made things worse with the whole board of pharmacy accusation.
Yeah. And I mean, I like how you said, action is everything. Intentions mean nothing, right? I think that's pretty huge. And like you actually took action for yourself, to seek the help that you needed, right? To turn it around. Like you wouldn't be here today. You wouldn't be part of RPHL if you didn't take action for the betterment of your future and taking care of business, right?
And it's funny you mentioned that. Sorry to interrupt, but I didn't really get the help that I needed for the longest period of time. I try to fix everything myself. Eric's smart. Eric can handle it. Eric's a problem solver. There's nothing Eric can't do. So I try to fix it myself for as long as I could. I intended for things to get better. And there was even points where I intended to get more help, but it just wasn't the right time. I was too busy with work. I was too busy trying to figure other things out and take care of this myself. But I was intending to get extra help. I didn't because I was too busy. Well, you know what? I didn't get the help I needed, even though I was intending to. And look what freaking happened.
Yeah. You lost your license. Right?
I did. Further down the road. Yeah.
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 Deep. That's heavy, dude.
Yeah. It's a lot to learn, going through something like that. It wasn't just like one event and then you lost your license and you learn one thing from it. No, it's a series of events. It was a long road, a lot of decisions being made. Honestly, just trying to do the best I can with the resources that I had and the knowledge that I had. But it's tough, and you find yourself in a place where ultimately you need to make a decision. And that's what it was for me for the board of pharmacy. It's I could have, kept fighting for my license and fighting that uphill battle. I was just at a point due to the events that happened where I said, I don't think this is my best bet. And so I had to make a very difficult decision to continue on a different path that wasn't pharmacy or continue down that path I was on for about 3 years trying to stay in pharmacy. When I looked at all my options and weighed everything, I decided to take the other path, figure something else out for my life. And that's really tough. I don't have any regrets, but I often fall into the trap of going back to thinking about that. And I know it's not healthy to do so. Did I make the right decision? Would my life be better today if I would have kept pursuing pharmacy, even though I felt like it was pretty much hopeless path. And that's how I really felt at that time. And that's why I decided to go a different route, get a different job, go back to school for my MBA. It just felt too difficult to ever make that a successful career in pharmacy for me again. But today I look at that and it's like, okay, well, if I went through all those, overcame all those hurdles and jumped through all those hoops that the board of pharmacy was asking me to do, would I be a successful pharmacist today? And I pretty much without a doubt, I could say, yeah, I would have figured it out. Yeah, it would have been hard. It would have taken some time. It would have cost a lot of money, but it wouldn't have been impossible and it wouldn't have been forever. Yet, honestly, when I was, fighting, the board of pharmacy and all this other stuff, and it was essentially just me, I felt so small trying to battle this huge beast. And I'm like, how am I ever going to win this? And I decided to no longer fight that battle. But, what I would tell people now is if they're in that situation where they're like looking at all of these requirements they have to do, just do them. Like no matter what, no matter how ridiculous you think they may be, no matter how expensive it's going to be, no matter how long it's going to take, just do them. Because even if it's not about your license and about your profession, it's like, well, you're going to become a better person because of it, and just do it for that reason. It's not like it's going to make you a worse person or you're going to be the same when you're done. It's like, yeah, you can do other things to become a better person. I'm not saying like I didn't continue to work on myself in a different way. But if I would have said, okay, I have to do all this stuff, probably overkill, it's over the top, but I'm going to learn stuff from it. I'm going to be a better person when I'm done. Just do it for that reason. And there's going to be a lot of other benefits of that too. Staying in a profession that you love, holding on to your license, everything you've worked so hard for. Yeah. And you'll get through it. So, this conversation kind of went from talking about intentions in general to a little bit more about my story, but I'm glad it did, because I know there are people in that boat where they're feeling like this is too challenging. Maybe there's a legal barrier, or maybe it's just being overwhelmed or stressed and they're not happy with their job anymore. They're thinking about getting out. Well, it's like, before you do, look at all your other options. The grass isn't always greener on the other side.
It's awesome, Eric. No, it's perfect. I mean, and then you can always tie that back to intentions too. Like, this is going back to what I first said, like no idea where this conversation is going. This went somewhere I did not plan. And this is awesome. I like just a recap though. This last segment was really about if you're in that situation, like the board of pharmacy is knocking, you have some sort of action against your license and you have these steps to follow in order to keep it. You're saying do the work to go through it, right? I just want to make that point clear. Good. And then, yeah, cause I can kind of reiterate that too, because when it was last May, like a year and a couple months or year and a month, where I had to take my 22-hour ethics course, right? Yeah. That the board, if I want to keep my pharmacist license, I needed to take this ethics course. And of course, beautiful May weekend, I'm stuck inside, listening to my boys out, play with my wife outside, right? Just grumpy about it. Yeah. But I did learn a few things that I wasn't aware of before, right? And I'm like, okay, it's just intentions or action. I mean, just taking it and trying to like soak it up a little bit. I don't know if that makes any sense, but.
No, it definitely does. It's interesting you mentioned that ethics course. I went through, I think, the same ethics course that you had to go through. And I remember there was a lot of people who, I'm going to say, clearly did something wrong. Some guy was buying medications from overseas that didn't have the FDA approval on it because they were cheaper. Some other people were doing fraudulent billing and, these kind of things where they clearly cross an ethical boundary. And for mine, I was there for my use of Ambien that led to, erratic behavior and contact with law enforcement. And I asked him, I said, I'm just trying to understand this a little bit better about this ethics course. I said, what ethical boundary did I cross? I just took the medication as prescribed. I wasn't abusing it. I wasn't misusing it anyway. So what can I learn from this about my actions from an ethical perspective? And the response that I got from the guy running the program was pretty disappointing. And I've been thinking about it recently. What he said, well, you're here because the board of pharmacy says you need to be here. And I'm like, that is extremely not helpful for my growth and me learning from this. But, you know, since then I've answered that question myself, and it's, well, you know, I had an ethical responsibility to get the help that I needed when I realized I had a problem. I had an ethical responsibility to contact a licensing attorney when I started having, you know, encounters with law enforcement. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that I should have like went running to the board of pharmacy telling them I'm not an attorney. I don't know if that's the best thing or not, but I would definitely talk to somebody who knows that. Ethical responsibility to get professional help for myself, medically, psychologically, and then legally as well. So those experts could then guide me on the best route to take to deal with whatever issues that I was facing. And that is the ethical responsibility that I had and that I did not follow through on. But that's not what that guy told me at all.
But you had the intention of getting help, but you just never did, right? You didn't take action.
Yeah. Yep.
Trying to tie it back to our conversation here.
That's accurate. Yeah. And I think something else that has to do with that too. I didn't think it was to that point yet. I underestimated the severity of the problem. So yeah, so I was intending on doing it, but not yet. You know, let me get some more evidence to say that this isn't working, and when things get better, or whatever I was telling myself. Yeah. But yeah. So, you know, I guess another takeaway for the viewers: if you are encountering any type of issues or struggles in your life, professionally, personally, legally, psychologically, it's like reach out for help sooner than later. Because more times than not, things are only going to get worse in one way or another. And you don't want to do that to yourself. You know, you want the best for yourself. So do yourself a favor and get the help you need. Take care of yourself. If that means taking time off work, well, your life is way more important than your job and your work. Like, that will always be there. As long as you take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, it may not be there. So think about it that way.
It's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Good stuff, Eric. Appreciate it. Good sessions today. We will see you when we see you.
Yep, sounds good, Sean. Thanks, man.
Thank you.